Hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started just to try to keep everything on time, and I want to leave time for questions after in case anybody has anything that they want to cover. My name is Scott Margolius. I'm the founder of Ecomsellertools. I've been consulting for Amazon sellers since 2014. I've been on the Amazon platform since 2012, and I've been on eBay since 2000. And I've been enjoying helping sellers quite a bit because in all reality, there's a lot of help that's needed. And in fact, I've noticed even just at the conference that I've had enough people come up and talk to me and say, hey, I need help with this or that or the other thing, that I've definitely shortened what I was going to say to make sure that there's time after this. And even I'll take questions from the audience if yours is appropriate for that as well. So just want to let you know that help is available because I know that people are dealing with some significant things right now in their accounts, and it could happen anytime. And so I want to make sure that you know that that resource is available. I want to tell you that I'm going to cover a few things that sound scary, but I don't want you to be afraid. I'm just telling you things that are sort of matter of fact for the platform, but in all reality, you should also know I'm not an attorney. A lot of people seem to think that I am for whatever reason, but I want you to have the confidence to know that you don't have to be. I'm not, and you don't have to be. And you don't even have to hire an attorney to fix some of these things. So I was talking to one earlier today, and boy, his prices are a lot higher than mine. And I thought, oh, you know, I could raise my prices, but I don't need to because it doesn't call for that. You know, you're not paying attorney rates to get some sorts of things on your account fixed. And I try to be as reasonable as possible when approaching the things that you need to approach. Don't always think, oh, it's got to be a flat rate, or oh, it's got to be, you know, monthly or whatever. It could be an hourly rate when you're looking at things that you need help with on your account. Another thing I wanted to remember to share with you that I think we should all be thinking about is we've got to be thankful just to even be here. You know, to be where we are right here, right now, to be in this space on e-commerce and making money this way, whether it's full-time, part-time, or whatever. We've got to be appreciative of what we've got. You know, the free time that you have, all the reasons that you got into e-commerce in the first place. We're blessed. You know, we've been taken care of and given enormous opportunity. And like Jim was saying this morning, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. You know, I've been in this for a long time, and I know a lot of you in the room have been as well, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started. And so if you feel like, hey, you're starting now and it's too late for you or you're behind, don't think that way. There's all kinds of opportunity. I see it all the time. People just need a little bit of help here and there. And you know, it's incredibly advantageous that you're able to be at a conference like this to sort of get it all with a fire hose, learn all the things that you need to learn. And like Oscar was saying, the big key is to be able to apply those things in your business and in your life. And you know, you think about all the different things that you've done up until now. How did you get to this point? What is your purpose? What is your intention in life? And where do you want to go? And how does this fit into it? And for most people, it fits pretty well. But I've seen people who've just jumped in and they didn't necessarily have the training that they needed, or they didn't necessarily have the right mindset. And that sort of holds people back because they think, I don't know everything I need to know, or they get overwhelmed. And it is good for you to have a plan, for you to know exactly what you want to do and get the training that you need. I talk normally about account health because that's my normal focus as far as seller performance issues and as far as helping people get reinstated if they've been suspended, helping them with ASIN issues, all kinds of sort of more obscure things that you don't see a lot of people provide training for. So if you come to me and you need help with a specific thing, one of the things I always try to do is not just fix the problem, but provide additional support so that you know what happened and why it happened and how to avoid it next time. Because I don't feel like I've done my job appropriately if you come back with the same problem again. I want to get it fixed, and I want you, going on your way, and And there are a lot of people who don't come back to me for the original problem that they came to me for the first time. They'll come back for something else. And I feel like, that's a great situation. I've got a story about a friend who was an incredible risk taker. I mean, this guy would ride his motorcycle in traffic at 80 miles an hour without a helmet, popping wheelies. And it's like, that's not something I would ever do. And I wished that he hadn't, but that's just kind of, adrenaline is his thing. And so one day when he told me that he had purchased a chainsaw to cut wood at his property, I knew that that was not just any old chainsaw. He went out and found the biggest, baddest chainsaw he could possibly get. One of the ones you can barely pick up. And the first thing I thought, I think a lot about risk management and how to avoid problems and avoid, getting yourself in a bad situation. And so I, as any good friend would do, bought him a pair of Kevlar chainsaw chaps. And about 2 weeks after I gave them to him, he sent me a picture of the chaps, and they were shredded right here, right where his femoral artery was. And if he had not received that gift, and if he had not been wearing those chaps, he probably would have bled out right there on his property. He was out there by himself. And I say that as an analogy for Amazon sellers who just sort of jump in, don't know the things that they need to know, don't know the things that they need to avoid, don't know the proper process for dealing with Amazon when it comes to seller performance and account health issues. And those are all things that you can learn. Those are things that are able to be gathered. And I teach some of those things. I just had a book launch that should help people immensely. I view it as, it should almost be required reading for new sellers, talking about Amazon plans of action and how to win appeals. You can find that book on Amazon. It's available in paperback and ebook, and I'd highly recommend.
What's the name?
Amazon Plans of Action. That's all. There's more to it. There's a subtitle, but that's all you have to look up in order to find it. Probably take you 2 to 3 hours to read. And enormously valuable, I think, in terms of expanding the way that you think about dealing with these types of issues, account health issues on Amazon. So why should you care about your account health? I'll give you 3 reasons, and I'll jump into each one of them. First one is it's inevitable. You're going to run into account health issues. How many people in the room have been selling for any period of time? Raise your hand if you've never had an account health issue. It just doesn't happen that often. I knew this guy who was 85 years old, and he'd been all around the world and had a whole bunch of different jobs, and he had had a wonderful, fulfilling life. He had never had any health issues in his entire life. He didn't wear glasses, he didn't have hearing aids, he didn't have any replacement knees or anything. He'd never had stitches, he'd never had a tooth pulled, he'd never been significantly sick at 85 years old. That just doesn't happen. If you're a human on this earth, you're going to have some kind of health issue. And that's how it is on Amazon. There are, number 2, no big profits on Amazon if you don't have account health. And the reason for that is, I'll go into that a little bit later. But basically it's a competition. It's a competition for the buy box. And you've got to have account health in order to be able to compete. The third reason, and again, I'm saying this not to scare you, but is just a fact, and it's why you need to be paying attention to your account health, is because you could lose your business. Now, granted, I've got a 98% success rate at helping people get reinstated. It is entirely possible, and you can do it yourself. You can go through the book, and I've got a course that just launched, and you can sign up for that here at the conference, and it will help you do the account health maintenance yourself. You can learn these things. You can be in charge of those things. You can be the CEO of your business and your account. And I like to think of it in terms of Amazon sellers tend to think, oh, I'm an Amazon seller. But that's not really what's going on. You're a business owner who happens to be selling on Amazon. Amazon's just a channel for you. And so you want to keep that in mind. And in that vein, you really ought to be spending at least an hour a day on your business instead of in it. And during that hour, I highly encourage you to look at your account health during that hour. It might not take you long. You might just be able to check in and not spend a whole lot of time on it. But that hour a day working on your business instead of in your business will make just the biggest difference ever. And you'll have a chance to be able to step back, think about where you're going, where you've come from, and what your goals are, and what your plan is, and what resources that you need to bring in, and what software you should be looking at. But you want to be working on your business, wearing your CEO hat, not doing anything else but focusing on how to grow, protect, maintain your business. So back to inevitability. I mean, it is kind of like growing old. You know, we're all doing it, and some of us are kicking and screaming and don't want to have to experience the aging process. But if you think about, you know, all of the different types of products that are available for anti-aging and for you know, youth and all that kind of thing, for health in general, it's a fact. Your Amazon account health, the things you'll run into, there's an inevitability there. I was at the airport and I got off the plane and I bought this immunity drink. And I thought, boy, okay, I got off the plane, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to drink this immunity drink. And I cannot tell you how poorly it tasted. I mean, it was just like disgusting. I could barely get it down, but this is good for me, right? And the fact is that you're going to have to deal with things on a regular basis related to your account. And one of the reasons for that is you're guilty until proven innocent on the Amazon platform. And what that looks like is if a customer complains, it's your fault. If Amazon makes a mistake, it's your fault. You've got to figure out how to fix it. Most of the time, Amazon just wants you to resolve the problem. They want you to figure out what the root cause was, and then they want you to go ahead and fix it and tell them what you've done in order to fix it. But because of that, and customers are always number one, you are in kind of a defensive role, and you have to keep that in mind and have that mindset, knowing that no matter what the problem is, why Amazon got a hold of you to let you know what was a problem with your account, you're the one who's responsible to fix it, and that's what they want to know from you. Another reason why it's inevitable that these account health issues will crop up on your account is because Amazon expects perfection from you. And it's different from other platforms. I've seen people excel on all other kinds of platforms. I love eBay. I think it's amazing. I still prefer to sell on eBay in a lot of different ways. It's easier. It's more fun. I've provided consulting for a number of different people where I've thought, hey, eBay is the right fit for you. It's easier. They describe their goals. They describe where they are trying to get, how much money they're trying to make. And it's like, you know, you can make 6 figures on eBay and keep those 6 figures in a year, almost with your eyes closed, if you know what you're doing. And if you've got smaller goals for your side income or for your main income, and that fits into that realm, I'd say, hey, go full bore on eBay, because you don't have to deal with all the headaches of Amazon. Now, that being said, I don't want to dissuade anybody. Amazon's incredible. It's an amazing opportunity. But if you don't want to have to deal with issues that are plaguing you on a regular basis, you're either doing something wrong and need to figure out what you're doing or not doing that could be corrected so you don't have to deal with these things that are related to account health, or maybe it makes sense to sell on a different platform. You've already got a lot of the skills and experience that you need to be successful, but you just apply them somewhere else and it's just easier. The third reason why it's inevitable is because of Amazon policy. It's constantly changing, and it's broad, and it applies to so many different aspects of how you do business. I would highly encourage everybody, if you haven't done so already, put it on your list right now. You need to read through the terms of service. You need to read through the seller code of conduct, the business solutions agreement. All of those things are super critical for your success on Amazon. It sounds terrible. It's going to put you to sleep, but you've got to read it. You really do. and that will save you so much trouble, just to be familiar with those types of things. So, on to the second point, that there are no big profits without account health. I recently went out to my truck, and it wouldn't start. And, I turned the key, and no click, click, no nothing. And I thought, boy, that's really kind of strange. So I thought, I'll troubleshoot it myself. And so I popped the hood, and I'm looking for anything unusual, anything going on with the starter or alternator or whatever. And I noticed this pile of kind of debris over by the battery, and quickly realized that it must be a rat's nest or something like that. And basically, there's no juice. There's nothing going on when I turn that key, and there's probably battery cable. And in a similar fashion, your car isn't going to go anywhere without a battery. It doesn't matter how nice your vehicle is. It doesn't matter how much you spent for it. It doesn't matter if it's leather interior or whatever, or how new. You're not going anywhere. You're sunk without that battery. And Amazon is kind of the same way. If you think of your account health as that battery, you're not going anywhere without your account health. Mainly because the buy box is a competition. If you look at your metrics, if you think about all the different things that Amazon's rating you for on your account health dashboard, they're looking at all these different things. And if you're not looking at them, you're not going to be able to be in competition for the buy box. So you've got to be looking at your account health on a daily basis, maybe sometimes in some cases more than once a day. There are specific places where you ought to be looking at a very minimum. And so many things have changed recently where Amazon is looking at different things than what you're looking at, because they've got this sort of dashboard behind the scenes that you can't see, and they have notes on your account that they don't give you and they don't let you know. They rate you in different ways than what they provide to you. But you've got to manage the variables that you can manage. You've got to control the things that you can control. And so they give you the account health dashboard, and you think, there are a lot of sellers who think that's the only place they need to look, good enough, and that's not the case. If you look at the front of your vehicle and you think, oh, here's my oil pressure, and here's the temperature, and here's my accelerator, and this is how fast I'm going, and here's my gas gauge, you think those are the only places to look. But they're not when it comes to your Amazon account. Your account health dashboard is not the only place to look. It's not sufficient to only look there. You have to look at your performance notifications, and you have to pay attention to your messages. There are so many times when somebody will come to me and they'll say, hey, I don't know what the problem is, or I don't know where to find it, or we'll go look in their performance notifications and we'll look up the ASIN, and they're just not to be found. But it might be in their messages, or they might have sent something in a different way, and it pops up on the screen, and you see the problem. We were just talking a moment ago. There's something that shows up in the account health dashboard, but how do you know what the problem is when they're talking about a suspected intellectual property complaint? How do you determine what they actually want you to do? Well, you can go into it, you can click on it, but the root most often with something like that shows up in the account health dashboard, but they don't tell you what the problem is in your performance notifications. So you have to get used to looking at those also. The third reason why you need to pay attention to your account health is because you could lose your business. And again, I want to make sure that you know that I'm not telling you that to scare you, but because of the fact that it's a reality. But a lot of the people I've talked to, that's not a significant issue for them anymore. They're not walking around concerning that the sky's falling. They're not overwhelmed thinking that something could happen with their account health, or the rug could get pulled out from under them, because there's usually a systematic approach to these things. You don't have to be concerned that you could lose your business, because you just need the proper training to be able to address these things appropriately and to know what to do when the issue arises. And so I have to say, you've got to stay on top of all of these different details related to your account health. And there was a point in time when I didn't do that. I had an authorized second account that I loaned out to a friend of mine for him to be able to liquidate some of the items that he was no longer authorized to sell. And I thought that was going to work out pretty well. You know, he was going to make a little bit of money. He was going to be able to get rid of this stuff. He could spend the money somewhere else. And little did I know that he wasn't paying attention to the sales that were coming through. And I wasn't either. I thought he had it taken care of. And so 15 sales that were late for fulfillment later, and I got a notice in my account that it was suspended. And I'm like, what on earth is going on here? I didn't even know it was suspended for like 10 days because I'm not paying any attention at all. And so I was able to write a plan of action and get that fixed. But the point is, if we'd been paying attention, it never would have happened. That happened pretty frequently. You know, if you're paying attention, you can avoid a lot of the big main problems with Amazon. There are 11 variables that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail that you should be thinking about paying attention to, managing. If you don't have an opportunity to write these down, I can send them to you. I can email them to you. I'll be at the booth in the back from the main room, and you can come see me there. Or I'll give them to you now. And of course, I got to read them because I can't remember all these. But product condition is a really big deal when it comes to Amazon. Like I said, you know, they expect you to be perfect, and you've got to make sure that every product you're selling is in pristine, brand new retail condition, unless you describe it otherwise. And so what does that mean you need to do? You've got to have the right testing in place. You've got to have the right inspection in place. You've got to make sure that you're paying attention to the experience that the consumer is going to have when they receive your product, right? So you don't want any scratches on it. You don't want labels in weird places. You don't want strange marks on it. You don't want strange scratches. You don't want shelf wear. You don't want the safety seals broken. You've got to inspect all of that. It's kind of easier to do if you're, you know, sort of in a smaller level, like the quantity that you work on for RA and OA. But if you're wholesale and you've got, you know, a whole case of something, you don't normally think about, oh, I should inspect every single one of the items inside of that inner case. Because you think, oh, I got it from the manufacturer, it's brand new, there shouldn't be a problem. But you're relying on that factory to have perfection in their entire supply chain. And sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes it's not, but I really advise checking every single product before you send it to Amazon for FBA, or even if it's merchant fulfilled. Another thing that helps immensely, and I'm sure Jimmy can attest to this, is if you can get authorization to sell the products you're selling, that'll save you all kinds of trouble. It's not always possible, obviously, but when you can, it's a game changer, and it'll give you a lot more confidence to be able to sell those specific products. If you can develop relationships with the manufacturer, you know, that really changes things. The third thing, you're really looking for good invoices. I can't tell you how often I find that either somebody doesn't have a receipt or an invoice, or they can't find it, or it's not one that Amazon would accept. A lot of the time they need to be annotated, and I talk a lot about that in the book. I've got a significant amount of space devoted to preparing your invoices or your receipts properly. And that makes a big difference. You could supply Amazon with the plan of action that they'll accept, that they're perfectly happy with, but the whole thing will get rejected just simply because the receipt or the invoice isn't in the right format or it's missing information. Number 4, if you go back to thinking about the terms of service, again, you really need to read through those. The business solutions agreement, the seller code of conduct. You don't want to be suspended for a seller code of conduct violation. I had somebody reach out to me just the other day about that type of suspension. Section 3, seller code of conduct suspension. I don't even really want to mess with them. They're terrible. And so you want to read through that to make sure you're not going to be guilty. You want to be paying attention to your messages. Number 5. Getting back to people on a regular basis. If you think about again, putting yourself inside of the mind of a customer, they're getting a hold of you, asking for help, looking for some kind of guidance. The sooner you can respond to them, the better off you are. The less likely they are to complain or get more upset. And you can sort of fix the problem before it blows up and becomes a really big issue. And a lot of sellers will think about, hey, I'm FBA, I don't have to deal with some things like that. Amazon's going to take care of all the customer service, and it's not quite like that. You need to own that relationship as much as possible. Amazon doesn't give you the ability to have a relationship with customers, but if they're going to reach out to you through messaging, that's your job to get back to them 24/7. I normally recommend, Amazon says 24 hours, I like a 3-hour time frame. I feel that's a lot better. If I reach out to somebody and I need help as a customer, the faster response time, the better. And that might turn everything around. They might be really upset with you, but they reach out to you and you get back to them in a short period of time. That could short circuit all of their concerns. The sixth thing is performance notifications. If that's not a place in your account that you're used to going to, it really needs to be a place that you look at on a daily basis. Your feedback is number 7. It used to be a lot different. I had a 6-figure Amazon services business helping people with feedback, and that just dried up almost overnight. And the reason is because Amazon changed that system so much. They make it so much more difficult to get feedback removed now. It's still possible, and it's worth trying, but it's just the likelihood is not nearly what it used to be. You should be looking at your number 8, your account health dashboard on a daily basis, maybe more than once a day. But you've got to be paying attention to all the things that are coming up in there, anything that Amazon is requesting of you that you need to respond to. Number 9, you've got to be thinking about staff training. If it's not just you, if it's more than you in your organization, somebody else has to have a lot of the same knowledge that you do. You've got to impart that to somebody else. Somebody else needs to be responsible for these account health issues if it's not going to be you. You know, most of the time it's you, but are they going to have the expertise that you do? Are they going to care as much as you do? You've got to make sure that you've got that in good hands. Number 10, I wasn't going to mention this at all because it's kind of hard to explain, but it has to do with account health access. If I give you access to my seller account, that could be really problematic because Amazon could look at that as a suspected duplicate account. And you don't want to be guilty of that. I used to, when I would come to a conference like this, I wouldn't even log into the Wi-Fi without a VPN. I wouldn't log into the Wi-Fi at a hotel. I wouldn't let there be any kind of connection between myself, my seller account, and anybody else's. I don't think it's quite that strict anymore. I think it's great if you have a VPN, but you don't have to have one. Another thing related to this sort of account access thing that I would say, and I mentioned this in the book as well, is that if you were to be suspended, you do not want to open a second seller account. You really want to get that first account suspended. If you open a second account, it gets even worse. I reinstated a guy after, it took 6 months, I think. No, that was a different guy. It took 1.5 years to get this guy reinstated. He'd opened 3 seller accounts, and it was a nightmare. You definitely don't want to be stuck in a situation where you are suspected of having a second seller account that's not authorized. Finally, number 11, product detail page matching. You want to make sure that your product that you have in hand is an exact match against the product detail page, an exact match against the listing. And you want to make sure it's an exact match in every way. I see this all the time. Oh, this is old packaging, so I'm going to go ahead and sell this against the listing that has new packaging. Or maybe there's something slightly different about this. I saw somebody who was suspended recently because they sent in something that was a single pack, but the listing had been changed to a multi-pack. I've seen where somebody would send in like shampoo and somebody else change it to shampoo plus conditioner. You've got to make sure that you're monitoring your listings on a regular basis to, one, when you first add them to your inventory, that they're an exact match against the product detail page, but also that they don't change over time. I do have some software that will help you with that, and we're accepting people into beta. And if that's something that you're interested in, I can let you know how to sign up for beta. To finalize everything, I wanted to say the account health, you can start paying attention to it now, and it will make a huge difference for you. It'll be a huge load off. It might seem like a big burden, but ultimately, once you're doing the right things, it's a straightforward process. It's just one more thing that you add to the list, but it doesn't have to be super time intensive. You have to be paying attention to that because of the fact that it is, again, inevitable, because there are no big profits without account health, and because you could lose your account. I would encourage you to take a proactive approach, to change your mindset. Again, I think reading through the book helps with that immensely, to think about, what does Amazon want from you? They're not trying to suspend you. They're not trying to take away your license. They don't want to keep you from being successful. You're just getting caught up in sort of the rigmarole, of the process. And there's usually a safe way out. If nothing else, if you don't take anything else away from the talk, at least be paying attention to your performance notifications. At least be looking at your account health dashboard on a daily basis, and be paying attention to your feedback and your messages. I do have, as I mentioned, a new course that is just now out. You can sign up for that here at the conference. If you sign up at the conference, I'll send you a free copy of my paperback. That's put together with Larry Pruitt and Jim Cockram. He was very encouraging of the course, and I appreciate that. It will go into the pack eventually, if you're wondering, but you can also buy it now. And as far as the book, the Plans of Action, Proven Tactics for Winning Appeals, again, I think it's crazy not to buy it. I mean, this information is really valuable, and I share a lot of tips and tricks that you won't see anywhere else.
What's the name of the course?
The course, I don't even know the name. I think it's already completed. It's 6 different sessions followed by 6 live Q&As, and it's about account health maintenance, or account health management. But I honestly don't know the title. You can reach me at Ecomsellertools, Ecomsellertools.com, tools with an S. You can reach me on Facebook Messenger. My email address is scott@ecomsellertools.com, and I'll be at the back table, and I'll be around to answer any questions. If anybody has any questions now, happy to answer any of those.
I do, yeah. You were just a little bit ago, you were talking about how the listing changed. Here about 2 months ago, we sent in a bunch of product in one specific category where it was I'll just say it was a pack of 3. I don't remember exactly what it was. My wife's very detailed about that, and like a week later, 2 weeks later, we got 2 complaints back from customers saying that this was supposed to be, again, I'll make it up, a 6-pack or a 9-pack, and it just caught us completely off guard, because we know the listing wasn't that way when we first put it in, but a week later, 2 weeks later, somebody changed it. Whoever, I don't even know who can change it other than the person that made it.
Almost anybody.
So we got a couple of bad reviews. We took care of those customers, and I think we got some positive feedback from those customers, and then we removed the rest of the product from that listing.
It's a challenging situation. It happens all the time, and it's kind of the wild, wild west, because Amazon makes it wide open where basically anybody can change the listing, anybody can pile on a listing. Even if you're brand registered, somebody can jump on your listing because they don't gate it the way they should. I think they should gate the listings and just give people, the opportunity to become ungated in specific products or categories or individual ASINs. In a situation like that, all you can do is monitor your listings. All you can do is make sure that something hasn't changed, because it's basically no fault of your own if something it was a 2-pack and it became a 12-pack or whatever. I've seen that happen so many times. I send in a black shoe and it gets listed on Amazon as a white shoe because somebody changed it. And so you can just imagine how bad that buyer experience is when, hey, I'm going to go order this white shoe and I get a black one. I mean, Amazon doesn't do anything to prevent that. And in fact, they used to have a system where they would let you know of changes to the ASINs, ASIN change notification system, and that's essentially what my software does, is it gives you the ability to monitor all of the listings in your inventory so that you can make sure that when there is a change or a specific type of change that you can be aware of that immediately. You could go in and just take specific action. You could close the listing, you could recall the inventory, you could change the listing, you could try to watch it and see if somebody's going to continue to make changes. Eventually you'll figure out, hey, is this being changed back and forth and it's kind of a tug of war? In which case you don't want to have to, beat your head against the wall and fight somebody for that, because they're going to probably continually change it back. So you want to be careful in a situation like that. But about all you can do is monitor your listings. In the back.
So I know the specifics of it change case to case, but whenever you're putting together a POA for somebody,
Yeah.
generally, from your experience, what Amazon's looking for, because I'm sure a lot of them have submitted plans of action like, this is everything, and they're like, no, not enough information.
A lot of the time when they say not enough information, you really didn't have enough information. But a lot of the time they can say that and you could be rejected simply because your plan was not in the right format. So that's one thing that I definitely address in the book, is you want to make sure that whatever you tell them is in the right format. So normally that would be your root cause. And in order to find your root cause, I've got a whole chapter dedicated to how do you find the root cause. Because you can't really write an effective plan of action unless you know what caused the problem. So that's the first place. Then after you have a well-developed root cause, which to me is usually only a paragraph or so, then you would say what we've done to fix the problem. Amazon wants to know you've taken ownership and what have you done to fix it. And then there's another section, what have you done to prevent this from happening again. You cover all those things in your plan, and usually you'll be in a much better situation. When they ask you for more information, I've seen a lot of advice, and it's difficult to sort of combat this because you hear it all the time, especially on Facebook, and you're dealing with the wisdom of the crowd, and they say, oh, just keep sending it in. That's not normally good advice. Occasionally it is. Occasionally you get a different rep and they'll consider it differently. But for me, by the time somebody sent in the same insufficient plan 4 times, it makes it a lot more difficult for me to unravel. It's probably going to end up costing you more because it's going to be a bigger pain for me to fix. So as far as more information, a lot of the time they're looking for you to have a well-developed root cause that's different than what you've said, or maybe they've got in mind that you've done something differently than what you thought you did. A lot of that will, again, be uncovered in multiple different places in your account that you have to go to, at least 5 different places that you can go and find the root cause and then be able to develop your whole entire plan around that. Ma'am?
What are those 5 places you would look?
Let me get to that in a second. Let me get your question real quick. Yes?
The compliant, lately I've gotten a lot of requests for compliance documents for like safety, and I was just wondering if you had anything or if the book covered that more.
I don't talk about compliance issues like CPC or that kind of thing, especially for toys. In some cases, it makes sense just to stop selling that particular ASIN. That's what a lot of people have found related to toys and related to some sort of supplements. In some cases, you can get that type of certification from the manufacturer directly. In some cases, if it's a good enough product for you and selling well enough, you can pay for it yourself and get it that type of certification to provide. That's more of a rarer instance. The 5 places. So the first place I always look is in your FBA customer returns. Most of the time when the buyer complains, they'll leave that information about why they're upset in a little note that shows up in your FBA customer return. So if you go to reports, and this is only for FBA, if you go to the information shows up in a different place for merchant fulfilled, but for FBA, you go to reports at the top of the page, and I think they just changed the menu. And then you go to fulfillment, and then on the far left, about 3/4 of the way down the page, there's customer concessions, and then FBA customer returns. And in there, if you look by your ASIN, And then if you look by a date range of, let's say, the last 30 days, normally it'll pull up a spreadsheet, and you go to the far right of that spreadsheet and it'll say return reason. That's where you will find a lot of the smoking guns for the root cause. They didn't used to give you that information. I was on the phone with a lady who had been working at Amazon for 4 years, and she was in the FBA department, and she was pretty knowledgeable, like more so than most of the people you talk to on the phone at Amazon. I said, hey, can you like take suggestions? And then during the course of that conversation, I said, I know that you know what these reasons are, but you don't give them to us, and there's no reason not to. There's a place right here in this report, and you could be telling us this information. All you got to do is hot link it and provide more detail, and they started to do that. And it made my life a whole lot easier, and I'm sure it was a game changer for a lot of sellers as well, to finally be able to see in some instances, okay, what's the problem? Sir?
I was just, I heard you said you have a separate account, you have more than one account.
I have a second authorized account.
What was the criteria to set up that second authorized account? Because we looked into that, and it was going to require literally setting up a completely separate business.
That's pretty much what you have to do.
Corporate address, everything.
That's pretty much what you have to do. I had a separate address, separate bank account. They want you to use everything separate, like it's a completely separate business, but then they authorize you to operate a second account. They want you to sell a different category. They don't want you selling the same products on both accounts. And
It just seems very short-sighted to say that you can't like share warehouse space, for example.
yeah, I mean, I share warehouse space with somebody who is paying me to help them to learn to sell on Amazon. It makes me a little bit, queasy, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's could be difficult to explain, but it should be straightforward as well. You don't want to necessarily put yourself in that situation if you don't have to. Right here.
I know this isn't a private label course, but I've always heard people talk about when you're doing private label to set up a second account to keep it away from your RA account or whatever. Is that what yours is for, or is that normal procedure?
I opened my second account without it being authorized. And I was sweating bullets for a long time until I finally brought it into compliance. I was like, what do I do? And I wrote them and requested permission, and I felt like I was, got out of jail free for not being suspended, but admitting that I had the second account. When it comes to private label, I think it makes all kinds of sense to have an additional account, because if, like a lot of sellers, you're looking to be able to divest yourself of that and spin it off, sell it. I mean, right now is a great, incredible opportunity. If you've got a specific product or product line, you could build that up, make it profitable, and within a year or 2 or 3 years, you could spin that off and rinse and repeat. It makes it a lot easier if you have it set up that way from the beginning. Leanna?
I have 2 separate accounts, but I got authorized, but as long as Amazon knows what you're operating, because I let them know that I have the same address, but we're operating separately, and that we were on a network with the same IP. I gave the IP, I shared the address, but separate account, separate banking, but same address, same IP. They approved me, and I have had no issues.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's how you want it to be.
That's how you want it. You just need to let them know. It's doing it behind their back and then any surprises and have it open is far better. And they look at you. I have no
Yeah,
issues. And I've had it for 5 years.
it's much better to do it in the light of day. Sir?
You may already covered it, but I think about your book that is, I think, online. How do I find it?
You can just go to Amazon and look up Amazon Plans of Action, and you'll take you right to it. And right now, it's #1 in the category, so hopefully it'll stay that way. I would appreciate any reviews that you might leave. That's enormously beneficial.
Do you think that this is all I need, or is sufficient to take care of IP complaint, like one
I touch on IP complaints in the course that just recently released. You can sign up here at the conference. I don't touch on IP complaints very much in the book. So I would not say it would be an exhaustive resource for IP complaints. Sure.
How much does the IPI score play into your account health? Are there any tips that you know of for increasing?
I hate to tell you, I'm not an IPI expert. I don't pay much attention to it, so that's how much it shows up on my radar. It may affect some people in terms of something outlandish that might happen, but I don't see it in the work that I do.
For me, as my score has gone down, I've seen my quantity limits go down. So
Yeah.
now I'm running up into quantity limits.
I mean, a lot of the time, I would assume that that's related to a number of different other aspects of your account. It may or may not be related to account health. It might be related to, your sell-through. So I wouldn't look at that specifically as account health related issue. In the back?
We recently had a account notification when a customer complained that we sent something expired, but it's the first time we ever sold it, and the expiration date is years away. So I'm trying to figure out how to submit a POA that makes Amazon happy without saying, I'll never sell this again, this is all our fault, because from everything I've been able to find, it shouldn't have been a complaint. Do you have any insights on how to make them happy without shutting down, something that wasn't actually an error?
Was it individually labeled?
I think it was like, one or a two pack of something. I can.
Did you have a date label on there?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have seen that happen quite a bit, where a customer will receive it, but it didn't have a date label on there, and so they get confused because it'll be a different format than what they're expecting. And so you want to make sure that the label is clear in terms of explaining what the date actually is. But in terms of trying to get that cleared without saying I won't sell it again, that's what I normally try to do. That's what I would hope to do, unless you don't care about it. It's a lot easier to just not sell it again, but you still need to tell Amazon how you'll prevent that same thing from happening with another product. You've still got to identify why did a buyer say that there was a problem with that particular product. And as soon as you're able to identify that and give Amazon a list of the things that you're going to be doing differently, you could be talking about, we have a first in, first out policy. We manage our expiration dates and pay a lot of attention to that. Repeat some of their policy back to them. If you've gone in and studied the expiration date policy and the rules related to that, tell them what you're doing in terms of inspection, telling them what you're doing in terms of labeling and how you're following the policy, all that kind of thing. You got to give them a list of 5 different things that you're doing or that you've trained your staff to do to avoid those types of issues in the first place. But before I would do any of that, I would go and see if you could figure out what the complaint was that drove that.
With violations that get on your account, like whether it be IP or trademark or whatever the case may be, if you, I got an IP complaint for a cereal recently, I think it was Kellogg's or something like that, where they, complained about using a picture. When I wrote them, I included a receipt, I annotated it, I did all that, and it basically came back to the generic email like, well, we need more information. So the defect is still on there, but I guess what I'm wondering is it better to at least show that I tried to address that than obviously just leaving it? And I mean, I feel like I kind of included everything in there. I'm sure I missed something obviously, but is that a point where I come to a person, like yourself, or do you recommend just trying to send it in a differently worded way? Or
I feel like some of the brands are more difficult. Kellogg's is now making complaints on the platform. Target is now making complaints about Target products. Walmart is making complaints about Great Value products. And it's not that it happens all the time, but it happens enough that it would make me want to avoid selling a lot of those types of products. And of course, in the future, I wouldn't want to source any other Kellogg's, and I would want to tell them, hey, I'm no longer carrying that particular product. But the chances are really good you're not going to get a retraction. That's one of the first things that you want to do when you have an IP complaint is reach out to the person who complained and see if you can get a retraction. That's the fastest, easiest path, in my opinion, to be able to get that complaint removed from your account. But in your case, you might have to reword it a couple of different times. You might have to demonstrate the extent that you've gone to try to reach out to the rights owner. You'd want to switch it up. Definitely don't keep sending the same thing back, but I would also say, hey, it's a good thing that you are being proactive about it. It's a good thing that you are responding to them and letting them know that you're trying to take care of it and pay attention to that type of thing on your account.
After, I think they last 180 days. I'm more from the eBay side of things. I know over there, like, copyright infringements last 90 days, trademarks, parallel import violations last 180. Is that a similar thing with Amazon, where after that 6-month period it falls off? Because I know it disappears from account health. Does that mean it quits affecting anything on your account, or is that still kind of in their back-end system where they'll count it against you later?
It's still in their back-end system, but I feel like it falls off from counting against you. It's basically a rolling 6 months.
Okay.
And even in some cases, even if you get the account where they tell you that, hey, you've satisfied us, this isn't a problem anymore, or you may continue to sell it. Even in situations like that, the blemish may remain on your account for 6 months. Even though they've told you that it's been removed, it still shows up there. I don't necessarily trust the measurement that they give you, the gauge to say at risk. I've seen accounts slide into at risk, and there's not really any greater risk. It's just a broken gauge. You have the feel for what's going on with your account if you're paying attention to performance notifications and looking at your account health dashboard on a daily basis. That will give you a much better understanding of what the situation actually is, because they're not sitting there with a hair trigger most of the time. It's different for different accounts. There might be 6 different types of accounts or different situations. I had a client who was doing $12 million in volume, and he had 60 different IP complaints on the account. I had another client who was doing, he'd been on the platform since 2008, and he had 80 different complaints, IP complaints on his account. And he's like, I don't pay any attention to those, but it gave me a heart attack for him.
Was he doing the same volume, the guy with 80 versus 60?
Nah, he was only doing $1 million. But he still had a little bit of buffer. Amazon gives him more trust because he's had this account continuously since 2008. It's never been suspended. They give this other guy, the $12 million seller, they give him more trust, because of the fact that he's doing a lot of volume and has very few complaints. Ma'am?
That's what I was gonna ask. How do you know how much trust you're getting if your IP scores at what you go by? How are you knowing that?
It kind of depends on if you're a brand new seller or not. If you're a brand new seller, an IP complaint could be a really big problem. If you're a really low volume seller, an IP complaint could be a really big problem. For one seller, an IP complaint could take them down. For a different seller, they might be able to get 5 and still sleep well at night.
What do you think the future is legally surrounding IP complaints? Because the majority of them are bogus. It's just kind of bullying tactics, right? So is there any legal things that you've heard of around that?
I talked to an attorney about that this morning, that kind of very question. I said, why doesn't Amazon fix this? Why don't they make a complainant, testify that this is a real business with a real complaint, and we're lodging this, and maybe even charge them $500 to lodge the complaint, to make sure that the person who's complaining is able to be reached and to make sure that it's legitimate. I wish they would do that. I don't know if they ever will. To me, IP complaints are horrible. They're like the biggest Achilles heel.
If somebody reaches out to you as if they're another buyer, and they give you an attachment or some kind of a letter.
You mean if I reach out to you
Let's
and...
say I have a listing.
Okay.
And I'm selling somebody else's product, and somebody who says they're the rights owner contacts me as if they're a buyer with an attached letter that looks like a legal letter that they probably want to send me in the mail, but they didn't get around to doing that. Do I really need to pay much attention to that?
You know, a lot of, like if you're looking at the wisdom of the crowd on Facebook, a lot of the time they'll tell you, oh, don't worry about it. You know, tell them to pound sand. I wouldn't pay any attention to that type of complaint until Amazon gets a hold of me, and then it becomes real. I don't feel that way. I think a lot of the time that, like for instance, if I was going to file a complaint, you're on my listing. I don't want you on my listing. I had this situation. I started a number of different ASINs that I created the first time, you know, and I didn't go through the proper process of getting brand registered, and I didn't go through the proper process of making sure that I had it branded right. I just jumped kind of on there and made it happen, and those listings sold well. But other people jumped on, and I was never going to go file a complaint and try to kick other people off. I wasn't willing to do that. But if I had, I would have contacted you some other way besides contacting Amazon to try to get you kicked off. Because my goal would just be to tell you, hey, this is my listing and I don't want you on there, instead of getting your account suspended. You know, I think that would be completely unreasonable, unfair. So you've got to consider that some people are just trying to give you a heads up. Hey, we don't want to take action, but we want you to know that this is our listing and we want you off of there. And in a situation like that, I would look at their response, you know, look at their message to you and see, hey, are they a legitimate, you know, entity? Are they a legitimate business? Is this their listing? I'd try to read the writing on the wall and get off the listing and avoid all the headaches and complaints.
Just to piggyback on that, usually what I do is I ask them for a phone number and email address of someone inside the company.
Yeah.
You know, the .com.
Try to vet them a little bit.
Make sure it's legit.
Yeah, yeah. See if they'll respond. See if they are legit. I would use that. You know, maybe take it up a notch instead of just hair trigger, get off the listing. Maybe see if they are real. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to respond to you. There's always that possibility.
Just from the perspective of a brand owner, I deal with this, you know, on a relatively routine basis, and I will contact sellers via their accounts. You know, just I don't bother trying to track you down. And I'm going to send you a letter that says cease and desist. If you don't cease and desist, the next time I'm going to track you down, and then I'm going to say cease and desist. If you still don't cease and desist, then I'm going to send my lawyer in. We're going to sue you, because very often what happens with intellectual property is that sellers will devalue, you know, for example, a trademark. And that's real money that we're talking about. You know, it's like people that buy stuff, you know, the arbitrage thing. Some people buy stuff and they'll drop the price on a brand. And you'll see the bigger brands are now, they're going after this stuff aggressively. You also see that I had a friend, for example, ended up spending $75,000 because he pulled a photo off the web to use in an ad. And someone saw that ad, and it was their photo. And they got a lawyer in New York, and the lawyer works on contingency, and that was all she wrote. So be very careful with intellectual property. Your best bet is if somebody contacts you, vet them, find out, you know, are they the intellectual property owner? You know, if you're dealing with a trademark, you can go to USPTO, which is the U.S. Purchase and Trademark Offices. You can search the trademark, and it will provide you with the address of the trademark owner. And then you can contact them directly to figure out, okay, is this bogus or is this just some competitor who's trying to scare me?
The reality is, and Jimmy provides training on this, I'm pretty sure, Jimmy Smith in the back, and there are certain cues that you would be looking for as a seller to determine whether or not this is somebody's private label listing, and you want to stay off of those. Any other questions? Thank you all so much. I'll be at the booth in the back.